There is a hive design the Amish have used for over a century that produces healthy, productive colonies needing zero chemical treatments, zero replacement queens, and zero purchased equipment after the initial build, and it has been quietly left out of every modern beekeeping course because it eliminates almost everything those courses exist to sell. Here's the full story. Modern beekeeping education has a structure you may never have noticed because it is so consistent across every course, every book, and every video. It teaches you the Langstroth hive. It teaches you a treatment schedule. It teaches you to replace queens on a calendar. It teaches you to feed sugar. And every one of those lessons points toward a recurring purchase, frames, foundation, treatments, queens, feed, and the replacement bees you will need when the system fails. The Amish Hive design teaches none of that because it was developed before any of those products existed and it was never modified to accommodate them. It is closer to the natural log hives and skep traditions that beekeeping grew out of than to the industrial Langstroth, and what it produces is a colony that manages its own health, raises its own queens, builds its own comb, and needs almost nothing from outside the hive. This is exactly why it does not appear in the courses. A beekeeper running this design is not a customer, and an industry built on recurring customers has no incentive to teach the design that ends the recurring purchases. The foundation of the Amish approach is letting the bees build natural comb rather than using manufactured foundation, and this single difference cascades into everything else. Commercial beekeeping uses wax or plastic foundation sheets stamped with a cell pattern sized larger than what bees build naturally. The reason this matters is not cosmetic. Bees on foundation build worker cells at a size determined by the manufacturer, typically around 5.4 millimeters. Bees building natural comb build worker cells closer to 4.9 millimeters. That difference in cell size affects the development timing of the worker brood, and that timing directly affects varroa reproduction. Varroa mites reproduce inside capped brood cells. The mite's reproductive cycle is timed to the bee's development cycle. When the bee develops on smaller, natural-sized cells, the capped period is shorter, and the mite has less time to complete its reproductive cycle inside the cell. Natural comb beekeepers consistently report lower varroa loads than foundation beekeepers running identical genetics, and the mechanism is this development timing difference the foundation industry has every reason not to emphasize. The Amish never adopted foundation at scale. Their bees build natural comb, develop on natural cell sizes, and carry a natural resistance pressure against varroa that foundation-raised bees never get the chance to develop. There is a second benefit to natural comb that almost never gets mentioned, and it has to do with the colony's ability to manage its own brood. When bees build their own comb, they decide where to place drone cells, where to expand the brood nest, and how to arrange the honey arch above it. A colony building on foundation is forced into the pattern the manufacturer stamped into the sheet, which is overwhelmingly worker-sized cells with drone production restricted. Drone brood, as it happens, is where varroa mites prefer to reproduce. A colony allowed to build its own drone comb in the locations it chooses can be used by the beekeeper as a varroa trap. Drone frames are removed, and the mites concentrated in them are removed with them. The Amish did not invent this as a technique. It simply happens naturally when you let the bees build the way they want to. The foundation system removes that option entirely and then sells you a chemical to replace the function the bees would have performed for free. Before I go further, the full treatment-free system, the comb work, the queen selection, the whole thing written out step by step, lives in the Hive Vault at daleshive.com. Volume 1 covers the survival side, and the suppression archives in the complete set go deep on the banned and buried methods. This video's free. The vault's just everything in one place for folks who'd rather read it. I won't bring it up again. The second element of the design is allowing the colony to manage its own queen, which eliminates the single largest recurring cost in commercial beekeeping. The modern course teaches you to requeen every 18 months on a schedule, buying a mated queen each time. The Amish let the colony raise its own queens through natural supershear and swarm impulse. When a queen begins to fail, the colony raises a replacement from her own larvae, and the genetics continue uninterrupted. When the colony reaches swarm pressure, it produces queen cells that become new colonies, free expansion stock rather than a lost swarm. This produces locally adapted genetics that improve generation after generation through natural selection. The colonies that survive winter and resist disease are the ones that pass on their genetics. Over decades, an Amish apiary develops bees genuinely adapted to local conditions, local forage, and local pests, in a way that purchased queens shipped from 1,000 miles away never achieve. The genetics are free and they get better every year. There is a hidden cost to the purchased queen model that the catalog never mentions. A mated queen shipped to you in a cage was raised in a different climate, mated with drones from a different region, and carries genetics selected for that producer's conditions, not yours. When you introduce her, you are resetting your colony's local adaptation back to zero and replacing it with genetics optimized for somewhere else. Every scheduled requeening with a purchased queen actively works against the local adaptation that makes a colony hardy. The Amish colony, requeening itself from its own surviving stock, moves in the opposite direction every single generation. After 10 years, the difference between an apiary that has been buying queens and one that has been raising its own is not subtle. One is a collection of foreign genetics that need constant support. The other is a population that has been quietly engineering itself to thrive exactly where it lives. The third element is the hive body itself, which the Amish build from solid local wood at thicknesses far greater than commercial equipment. A standard commercial Langstroth box is built from 3/4-inch lumber, thin enough to ship cheaply and stack in volume. The Amish build their hive bodies from solid wood, often 1.5 inches thick or more, the kind of construction a working farm with its own sawmill produces without a second thought. That thickness does something the thin commercial box cannot. It provides thermal mass and insulation that buffers the colony against temperature swings in both summer heat and winter cold. A colony in a thick-walled hive spends less energy regulating its internal temperature. It clusters more efficiently in winter and overheats less in summer. The thick walls also resist moisture and rot, so the hive body lasts for decades rather than the handful of years a thin commercial box survives. The Amish hive is built once from material the farm already has, and it lasts a generation. Let me tell you how seeing one of these changed my thinking. I visited an Amish farm in my second year of beekeeping to buy honey, and the beekeeper showed me his hives almost as an afterthought. They did not look like anything in my catalog. Thick, solid wood, dark with age, clearly decades old. No foundation in the frames, just natural comb the bees had built themselves. No treatment strips, no feeders. He told me, through a fair amount of patient explanation, that he had never treated for mites, never bought a queen, and never fed sugar in 30 years of keeping bees on that farm. His colonies were not struggling, they were thriving. The honey was the best I had tasted, and he could not understand why I was spending the kind of money I described spending on treatments, queens, and replacement packages. To him, it sounded like paying for problems he simply did not have. I went home and let one hive build natural comb, stopped scheduled requeening, and started selecting from my strongest survivors. It took 3 seasons to see the full effect, but that hive's descendants now carry the lowest mite counts in my yard and have not been treated in 2 years. The design works, it was just never going to be taught by anyone who profits from the alternative. Here are the mistakes that cause people to fail with this approach. Mistake 1. Abandoning treatment overnight on commercial stock. Commercial bees have no varroa resistance because they were never selected for it. You cannot simply stop treating a commercial colony and expect it to survive. The transition to treatment-free requires building resistant genetics over several generations through selection. Stop treating gradually as your local survivor genetics establish, not all at once. Mistake 2. Using natural comb without managing the transition. Bees building natural comb need guidance, or they build cross-comb that makes inspection impossible. Use foundationless frames with a starter strip or comb guide and inspect early and often during the building phase to keep the comb straight. Mistake 3. Expecting immediate results. The Amish system is the product of unbroken generational selection. You are starting that selection process, not inheriting its endpoint. Give it 3 to 4 seasons before judging the genetics. Mistake 4. Thin commercial boxes with the rest of the system. The thermal mass of the thick hive body is part of why the system works. Running natural comb and survivor genetics in a thin commercial box loses one of the 3 legs of the design. Picture your apiary 5 seasons into this design. Thick-walled hives built to last a generation. Natural comb at natural cell size suppressing vero reproduction without a single treatment. Colonies raising their own queens from locally adapted survivor genetics that improve every year, no treatment purchases, no queen orders, no replacement packages, no foundation. An apiary that needs almost nothing from outside itself. You built it once, it improves on its own from there. Drop a comment and tell me whether you have ever run foundationless or treatment-free and what your experience was. I read every comment at Dale's Hive. The complete design and the rest of the methods the courses leave out are in the vault at daleshiv.com whenever you want them. Subscribe and turn on notifications because next week we are covering the complete foundationless conversion guide, step by step, so you can start building this system on your own hives this season. The design was never in the course because the course exists to sell you the alternative. Now you know it.